And now I have standing by Dan Lennington, the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, to talk about maybe a way to get at all of these issues instead of having to, play whack-a-mole. We just had a story about West Dallas. They're overtly hiring using discriminatory practices. They've changed the name of DEI. Dan, you and I have talked about this. Now it's cultural competency, or whatever other euphemism they're using for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which they began using instead of CRT. But all it means is race-based discrimination. And there, can we get at it in one big way? I know Will is proposing something called the Equality Amendment. How does that work?
So thanks for having me on, Vicki. The Wisconsin Constitution can be amended by the voters in a referendum if the legislature passes a resolution to amend the Constitution in 2 successive sessions. So last year, they passed the Equality Amendment. And right now, in 2026, they're on the verge of passing it again. If they succeed in passing this, it will go on the November ballot. So it will be on there, right, with Tom Tiffany and Eric Toney running for statewide office. This is how the Equality Amendment worked. It changes the Wisconsin Constitution to expressly prohibit any sort of racial discrimination, which would include racial preferences, priorities, or any sort of benefit based on race or detriment based on race in employment, education, or government contracting. So this would just basically explicitly make clear what we already know, is that race discrimination is unconstitutional. But it would, as you say, it would stop the sort of whack-a-mole that we have to go after each program one at a time. And this amendment, combined with a new attorney general, would really wipe the slate clean in Wisconsin and prohibit all of this discrimination, which we know is going on at the state level and also at the local level with school districts and counties and cities. So this is a really important amendment, and it could be on the ballot this November if the legislature takes action in the next month or so.
Okay, so we expect them to, though, don't we? We expect them to take action on this because it's politically smart, but also it gets at this finally. I'm looking at a story. This is the Daily Caller, West Dallas. The school district explicitly says it's going to hire non-white people. It's almost as explicit as they can possibly be. It's illegal. I mean, we know it's illegal, but you have to now write a letter to West Dallas, right? If you were going to address this, write a letter, threaten to file a complaint, et cetera, et cetera. There is a federal complaint, by the way, filed by an independent group. You have to do, and then if they don't comply after the investigation is done, then maybe you can bring a case, and then oh gosh, this is every single school district in Wisconsin right now, practically.
Yeah, this is West Dallas says they want to, quote, increase diversity in the workforce across key demographics from 10% to 25%. What that means is discriminating against white people. I mean, that's all that means is the preference based on race. They're saying they have too many white employees and they want to have fewer white employees. So that race is being used as a negative against those employees, and that's unconstitutional. It's just obviously not in West Dallas. In Wauwatosa, they're closing a STEM school because it's too white. Sun Prairie offers special mentoring programs for Black students only. Green Bay targets only Black and First Nation students with disabilities for help before others. Madison, of course, evaluates teachers based on whether they're, quote, prioritizing Black students, and they're laying off teachers that aren't prioritizing Black students. So, yeah, it's going on every school district around the state, even in school districts that are in red and conservative counties. They're still using equity, which is just a code word for race discrimination and racial balancing. So this amendment, would be great because it would explicitly make clear what we already know is true, and it would give really a strong legal fodder to the next attorney general to really push through that we can't have any more race discrimination going on in our school districts, in our counties, or cities, or at the state level.
So again, you're not, no longer say we're only going to hire minority contractors. We're only going to do X, Y, or Z. Why? Well, you can now. The Supreme Court said that when you use racial preferences, that's racial discrimination. And that's the thing that's really frustrating here. We shouldn't have to do it. We've got multiple Supreme Court cases essentially saying what you are saying, what the Equality Amendment is saying. We have those things, but we don't have an attorney general willing to do anything about it. We don't have district attorneys willing to do anything about it. We don't have a Department of Public Instruction superintendent or governor willing to do anything about it. So it's left to our one public interest law firm in Wisconsin to fight the entire battlefield by themselves.
Yeah, people say, well, this isn't necessary. The Constitution already prohibits this sort of stuff. But here's one example of why this is absolutely necessary. We have a scholarship in the state for poor students. You can get it if you go to technical colleges. You can get it if you go to the universities of Wisconsin. It discriminates against white and Asian students. White and Asian students can't apply for the scholarship. But we're litigating it, and we've been litigating it now for 4 years. We've been litigating this. And we won at the Court of Appeals. And guess who appealed it? The Evers administration appealed it to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, along with Josh Call, the Attorney General. And they are in court right now filing briefs saying, prohibiting Asians and whites from getting scholarships is perfectly fine under the Wisconsin Constitution. There's no problem with this. What are we talking about? Of course, diversity is so important. We can discriminate against Asians and whites all day. So yes, we need this amendment to make clear that discrimination is unlawful under the Wisconsin Constitution, because we have the governor and the AG right now saying just the opposite. So this is going on right now. I testified last week in front of the legislature in favor of this amendment, and one of the Democrat senators said, well, if you get rid of this, we can't have the diversity supplier program anymore. Well, the diversity supplier program run by the Evers administration pays out $200 million a year only to, quote, diverse suppliers, which are small businesses owned by not white and not Asian people. That is what the Evers administration is doing. $200 million a year is going out right now. And I said, yes, Senator. Yeah, that program will absolutely be flushed down the toilet once this amendment is passed. So, yes, we shouldn't have to do this. We shouldn't need this amendment, but we do because of what the Democrats are doing right now with our state.
We have cities, counties who contract with companies, and they make them do an entire survey, diversity checkbox survey. People hire people just to check the boxes so that they can have contracts in cities, contracts with the state, contracts with counties. They take on additional costs just so they can compete with contracts. But $200 million for the diversity suppliers program. How about lowest bid? How about competitive bidding on who's supplying Wisconsin for whatever those suppliers actually provide? How about just the best company that can offer the best products at the lowest cost in the most efficient way wins the day? Isn't that how government contracting is supposed to be? Sure it is. How about the poor kids? How about you give scholarships to the poor kids who show the most promise at success utilizing the scholarship? I don't know. That's crazy, right? 10 years ago, that wasn't crazy, but apparently it is now.
Just to make your blood boil a little more on this contracting thing, Black-owned and Hispanic-owned businesses in Wisconsin get what's called a 5% price preference. So if they bid, say, $1,000, or if they bid $100 on something, the government's going to treat it as if it's a bid for $95. They're going to so the white and the Asian companies they have to beat 95 in order to beat the $100 bid. So you get a 5% preference. This goes on and on and on. We got grants in the state for alcohol and drug abuse that are limited to non-white and non-Asian racial groups. We've got race discrimination in our gifted and talented programs, with charter school programs, transfer aids, all sorts of things. The city of Milwaukee runs an Office of African American Affairs that is meant to benefit, guess who? African Americans, not other people. Milwaukee County is closing swimming pools right now. I talked to you about this. They're closing swimming pools because the neighborhoods are too white around the swimming pools. It's called the Racial Equity Budget Tool. That's being used right now to fix sidewalks, to fix parks, to close swimming pools. If you're too white in Milwaukee County, you're probably losing your pool. So this is going on all over the place.
So I'm going to just throw this out there because that does make my blood boil. You're closing swimming pools because the neighborhood's too white? Seriously, you're not going to fix curbs because the neighborhood's too white. By the way, the Milwaukee Office of African American whatever, how have they been doing? How have they been doing? You know, I mean, it doesn't look like Black people are thriving in Milwaukee. Just saying. So here's the thing, and I'm just going to throw this out there. You can tell me if I'm nuts. I'm not a lawyer. How about instead of defense, how about someone sue? How about someone say that's discrimination against white people? You actually can't do that. You can't punish my child. You can't. You're discriminating against white people. Pay me money. I don't know. I mean, maybe we need to get some groups out there that actually sue for money, Dan, not just for changing the law.
Yeah, well, we also sue for money too. It is harder. It's harder to get money out of the government when the government is a defendant. There are all sorts of immunities and limitations, but yeah, we do sue for money, sue for damages, and that's right. It will. The problem though is that if you get a judgment for money against the city or county, who pays that? The taxpayers pay that. And so it's counterintuitive. Some of these bureaucrats, they don't care if they get a judgment against them. They're not paying it.
And they do it anyway.
That's right. Yeah. So that's not always the cure, but we will seek damages and we'll try to change behavior as much as possible. We've got a number of lawsuits that we still have pending and things we've got planned for the upcoming months and years.
What would we do without the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty? I don't know. We would be in much worse shape. I do appreciate the time. Thank you so much, Dan Ludington, for joining me.
Thank you very much.